so we're going to take a look at this. The Yorkville murders, Erin Gilmour.
Thanks, Russ. My name's Detective Steve Smith, and I'm an investigator with the Toronto Police Cold Case Unit. We have over 700 unsolved files, and I started to dig into some of the files that we had, that we knew that we had what we believed to be offender DNA, one of which was the Erin Gilmour file. Very interested to see this film. This is the first time I've seen the actual footage of Erin's murder.
The body of Toronto native Erin Gilmour was transferred by police to the city morgue this morning. The blonde part-time model was found by a friend about 9:30 last night, tied up in her bed and stabbed in the back. She was found in her second-floor apartment on Hazelton Avenue, located just above a trendy clothing store where she worked as a clerk. Friends visited the home all day to console family members, and they described Erin as a gorgeous socialite who dressed stylishly and often traveled abroad. Today, family members were too overcome with grief to talk with the media. Police, meanwhile, were going door to door.
Erin was stabbed multiple times throughout her torso and her neck. You can't imagine what she was going through, and we think of 20 minutes of our life and what she went through, and it must have seemed like a lifetime to her.
My name is Andrew Doyle. I'm a detective constable with the Toronto Police Service. I work specifically in the cold case unit of the homicide squad.
Yeah, she lived upstairs, so here's the entrance here. So you're talking, she would have left work and she would have walked and went right upstairs here.
My first impression of Steve was that he's a very friendly guy. He came out of the hold-up squad, did a lot of other type of investigative work prior to he and I working together. So it was an opportunity for me to basically learn from an officer that was a lot more experienced than I was at the time, and he was nice enough to sort of take me under his wing and guide me through some investigations. So I've learned a lot.
We believe she finished her shift right around 9 p.m. She went up to her apartment. Her boyfriend at the time, Mr. Monk, arrived around 9:20 p.m. So it's a very, very short window for this all to have occurred.
It's a terrible situation, right? No forced entries. So.
My first impressions of Jeff were, again, very friendly guy, eager, definitely wanted to be a part of the team.
I mean, it's back in the 80s too, right?
Absolutely.
He showed a lot of interest in it, and I was happy to have him on board.
But
probably no security systems either.
No, absolutely.
Really, we focused on two separate theories. One was that the offender was in the alley when Erin came out of her employment, and when she opened her door, he pushed her and followed her up into her apartment. But with the door being left ajar, you would think if you pre-planned this and you were going to abduct and sexually assault and murder a woman, you probably would have locked the door behind you. A theory that I lend myself to is that it was probably a break and enter at the time, and the offender was actually in her apartment looking for valuables, and she may have come in and surprised him.
I'm Sean McKeown, and I'm Erin Gilmour's brother. She was an incredible sister. I was 13 and she was 22 at the time. She was 9 years older. I and my brother were like the proverbial little brothers who got strapped along on her excursions. The last time I saw Erin was the day before she was murdered. It was December the 19th, and my brother and I had gone to stay at her apartment for a sleepover. It was 5 days before Christmas, and so we all woke up the next morning. Erin drove my brother Kelley back to my mom's house, and I sort of went off actually to do some Christmas shopping, and we said our goodbyes, and that was the last time I saw her.
Homicide detectives started a heavy round of questioning witnesses in the Hazelton Avenue area of Yorkville today. They're part of a group of 5 investigation teams who've been ordered to find leads in the Gilmour death.
My mom gently shook me and woke me up, and mentioned, and she was obviously very, very upset. She was emotional, and she said, "It's Erin." And then she said that she had been killed. And I remember screaming. Yeah, I remember screaming, and I remember I literally, pardon me, I literally rolled over and punched a hole in the wall.
So far, police are confident.
We have both leads and suspects in mind, but we can't establish anyone directly responsible at this stage of the investigation. And we're hopeful and feel confident that we can solve this murder.
The Gilmour case, unfortunately at the time, they didn't have the luxury of DNA evidence. We didn't really start to use DNA evidence until the early mid-90s. And as we progressed, we were able to do more with less with DNA evidence, but they didn't have that luxury back then.
It's been just over a year since Erin Gilmour was discovered murdered in her Hazelton Avenue apartment. Since her murder, homicide detectives have interviewed over 700 people and have amassed boxloads of notes and files on the case. But the Erin Gilmour murder remains unsolved.
And here we are 37 years later. And it's just always a, psychologically, I guess there's always a void. There's always the questions of why did this happen?
I did get a get the hell in here kind of phone call. Like, and then as soon as I got that phone call, that might have been the exact words actually, to be honest. I hung up, I knew something. I didn't know exactly what, I didn't know exactly what case, but I could tell by the tone of Steve's voice that something had come through. And then, quickly got into his office.
It was October 3rd, 1984, when 9-year-old Christine Jessup went missing from her home in Queensville, Ontario. Tragically, on December 31st, 1984, Christine was found in Sunderland, Ontario, in Durham region. She had been stabbed to death. On Friday, October 9th, 2020, we positively confirmed the identification of the person responsible for the DNA sample found on Christine's underwear. Calvin Hoover of Toronto, Ontario, was 28 years old in 1984. He died in 2015.
We've utilized an investigative technique that is fairly new in policing, certainly in Canada. This technique has been used in the United States for the last couple of years, and it's genetic genealogy that we have actually used by combing through numerous documents. And in doing so, in essence, builds out a family tree.
Thank the members of the Homicide Cold Case Section for their determination in getting us to this point. Thank you.
Unbelievable. Unreal that we actually, we did it. This worked. We got here. It was a very happy time for all of us. I was blown away, quite frankly. And it gives you the traction that you need or that you want to let's get going. Now we've done this. Let's keep this ball rolling. Let's gain some traction here. Let's do this again. Let's do it again, and let's do it again.
Erin Gilmour's brother, who called me and just wanted to speak and just wanted to see if there was any ability to use this technique to solve his sister's murder.
I saw something black around her throat, and I saw a lot of blood. I then shook her left shoulder. I shook her again and started screaming her name, but she didn't respond.
The individual who did this committed 2 violent murders within the span of 3 months, and someone out there knows something.
Erin's my girlfriend. As I walked up the driveway, I saw that Robin's knits was closed. I assumed that Erin had finished work. I looked up towards her bedroom window, I observed that the shutters were closed and the light was on. I proceeded to the door, which I noticed instantly was ajar, approximately an inch or two. I assumed that the door had been left open for me, so I proceeded up the stairs. And I noticed the door that separated her living quarters from her living room kitchen area was closed or maybe slightly ajar. I thought she was behind it, so I opened it, calling her name, and looked into the 2 bathrooms and then her bedroom. The lights were on, and her bed was unmade. It was at this point that I noticed the duvet was bunched up in such a manner that a body could be under it. I went to the bed, the right side of the bed. I picked up the duvet and observed Erin laying on the bed. Her whole body was covered by the duvet, so I pulled back to just below her shoulders. I saw something black around her throat, and I saw a lot of blood. I shook her again and started screaming her name, but she didn't respond.
My name is Kristen Basso, and Erin Gilmour is my first cousin. And my uncle David was Erin's father. Erin was the much-awaited child of Anna and David. She was such a little beauty. My uncle had always wanted to be close to her. He just adored her. I mean, in his book, he referred to her as the jewel in his crown.
Erin's father is David Gilmour, a well-known financier who owns this company just down the street from his daughter's apartment. Gilmour used to own the Clairtone Stereo Company with his partner Peter Monk.
He'd rented a place in Yorkville, right opposite his business, Barrack, which he was in partnership with Peter Monk. And it was so close that he knew he could come and visit her, spend time with her, quality time with her. And he felt safe that my mother's store was right just next door. And so we were just all thrilled to have her in the neighborhood. The day that Erin was murdered was a horribly cold day. Nobody in their right minds, even though it was the last few days, shopping days before Christmas, would have been out on a day that night if they didn't have to be. I'd spoken to Erin earlier that day, and she wasn't really feeling great, but she was at work doing what she had to do. The funeral was really kind of a blur. David just fell apart, and I remember seeing Guido rocking him in his arms and David saying, "I want to die, I just want to die."
Today, friends and co-workers mourned her death, but especially wanted to correct misconceptions.
She was nothing at all like the kind of socialite that she's been described as. She was the most regular of regular girls, the most kind and conscientious and sympathetic of girls.
She was bound, she was raped. I know she would have tried to her best to fight off that animal. And I know that she must have been in terror, and I know that she must have felt so alone. And that makes me sick, because we all felt that Erin was protected, that she was in a safety net with all of us being around, and we let her down.
Shortly before noon, police were called to an apartment in the Bathurst Street and Bloor area. They found the body of a woman in her mid-30s. Her body was discovered on the second floor of 341 Grace Street in a pool of blood, and homicide detectives say she was apparently stabbed to death. Police were called to the scene by the woman's brother, who became alarmed after
Susan Tice was new to Toronto. She was the mother of 4. She was 45 years old. She's from Calgary. She hadn't been in Toronto very long, unfortunately, before things went tragically wrong for her. Her kids, I believe, were away at school. sample. She was stabbed several times in the chest. She was also stabbed in the back. Mrs. Tice was sexually assaulted. So here we are here.
You wonder if there's access out back, right? A lot of these places have the coach house out back to park in, or whether she would have parked out on the street and walked herself up.
Well, I'm not sure how accessible it is. Maybe we should walk around.
We could, if you want. We'd have to go out and around, I would think.
Yeah. Well, it would be helpful, though, to see, I think, because at the time, front door was locked, and she was coming in and out from the rear. So it might be an idea for us to travel around back.
There's probably a laneway, so.
Yeah. All right.
You want to walk around back?
Yeah, let's try that. A next door neighbor does recall hearing 4 screams and around 1:30 in the morning. So about 15 minutes later, that same neighbor I spoke of that heard the 4 screams did hear somebody walking by. So this door back here, the rear door to the home, was open at the time that her brother-in-law came to check on her. It was open. It was ajar, it says on the report.
Yeah. So you wonder.
Looks like that was her access.
Yeah, I would suggest that would be the access at the point, because the front door was locked. When he came there, he actually had to walk himself around just like we did here.
Yeah.
I got access to the home through this way.
And you just wonder, was she targeted, or was he just out here? Was it a crime of he saw a female by herself?
Yeah.
Until the DNA came through in 2000, we didn't have a link between the 2 cases, even though they were about 4 or 5 months apart, very similar MO, but there was nothing to say that these cases were linked until we were able to put the DNA from both crime scenes together and definitively say that it's the same offender. We originally shipped the DNA sample down to Othram Labs in December of 2019. In February of 2020, we received notice that the coding was successful and that they were uploading it to GEDmatch for us. GEDmatch is, I like to refer it as a sort of clearinghouse for DNA matches, for people that are really into building their family trees. What GEDmatch has done is they will allow you to upload your genetic profile from any of the pay-per-use sources free to their website, and it'll give you matches from all the pay-per-use sources. And it gives you a much larger pool to build your family trees off. It'll give you a lot more connections of who you'd be related to. It's very complicated. It's one of the most complicated ones I've seen. So we're working into these families. We're doing some target testing at this point, and we're hoping to narrow it down. The process in this case is massive. We're into a small town Canada scenario. Families are interrelated on multiple different levels. We started with over 7,000 people in this family tree, and we've built it down to the point where we're looking at a few families. Let me just get my laptop fired up here. Just have to sign in. All right, well, we've received a little something from the genealogist in regards to Tice and Gilmour.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so they've built our family tree down to a couple families. So if you want, I'll draw it out for you.
When did you get this info?
Just a couple days ago. So I've been going through it. It's fairly complex.
Yeah.
It started with 8,000.
Yeah.
So we've narrowed it down to basically 2 families. We're looking at maybe 26 children and then their children's children. But there's, there could be 8 to 10 kids within each family.
Right.
So we're down past this one here now. You're into the kids.
We're down into the kids.
Yeah.
So we're down into here. But again, that also depends on the intergenerationals.
Right.
There could be someone that we believe is a kid, but it could be actually a grandchild.
Right.
So we have to work through that and find out exactly who the parents are.
What's our time frame looking like now?
I mean, it depends. We could get lucky and get a target test and actually have it come back as a sibling or a first cousin or, a son, daughter. We believe by using the genealogical process that these are the great-grandparents of the person that murdered both Susan Tice and Erin Gilmour.
Let's be honest, DNA, there's really nothing that's more invasive about a person. It's your gender, it's your sex, it's your ancestry, it's everything all in one. So that needs to be taken seriously.
Just looking at the Jessup case, her offender was arrested in '97. If we had been swabbing people upon arrest, the Jessup case would have been solved in 1997.
And I'm just going to loop in my brother, Kelley, who lives in New Zealand currently. I'm just going to put him on the phone.
Hey.
Hi, bro. How are ya?
I'm good. You?
So I'm just going to put you on speakerphone, and we've got the detectives here, Steve and Andrew, and Chrissy's here too. Okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to say Andrew's the lead investigator in the case, so I'm the major case manager. He's the lead investigator. So, but we're here obviously to give you an update on Erin's case. We've been able to so far come to our most recent common ancestors, which is the great-grandparents of the offender. So we're that close. I mean.
So the bottom line is you're trying to find relatives of this person.
That's right. Absolutely. So, and we're using those relatives to narrow down to who the person is. Okay. I mean, obviously we can eliminate any females in the families, but again, in these small towns, a lot of big families, right?
Sorry, it's Gillian here from New Zealand, just asking a question. I was wondering in terms of these great-grandparents that have been found, or these, I'm just assuming this is geographically within Canada. Is there a specific region or province that you can disclose?
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it right now, but we're talking small town Canada, very small town Canada.
And I know it's not perhaps the easiest question to answer or ask you to put a pin on a calendar date, but in terms of the progress so far and in terms of getting down to, as you mentioned, the great-grandparents, sort of what would you envision as a potential time frame in terms of getting to an end result?
We'll put it this way. We've been working this since we got the code for this case for about a year. So we've made huge progress. We're really starting to zero in. So we're really starting to, what would you say? Like we're really digging in where we're focusing on certain families, and we're really using our investigative techniques to include or exclude people.
Well, I think that I'll speak for the family, but I think that we're obviously very, very happy that, 38 years later, we're sitting at this table and getting to this point. It's been a long time coming, and I think that we also have been waiting for an update like this, and I'll say that's the most optimistic I've been in 38 years of waiting, and that's crazy. That's that's fabulous. From my sitting at this side of the table, it's it actually super encouraging and confidence building and everything. So thank you very much. It's great. It's yeah.
Like you said, you were asking earlier about how long, and it makes sense. How long does it take? It can take a month. It can take a year. It can take a day. Right. It can take a week. Things change extremely quickly.
What I miss the most is the what ifs. Who would she have married? what would her kids have been like? I miss speculating what life would have been like, you know, having my sister still in my life. I miss being able to ask her for advice. And I hate thinking about the moments that should have been.
This is an excerpt from a book that Erin really is largely responsible for me wanting to write about my family. 3 days after her death, I woke from a compellingly realistic dream that ended with her entreating me to reassure her family that she was in a happy, light-filled place. Erin had told me about her plan to write a book about the family. In a way, the writing of this book has become part of her legacy to me. I'll always remember Erin on our beach. Her long blonde hair swirled around her as she pirouetted on the sand, and her delicate hands and secret smile were exactly those of Botticelli's dreamy and beautiful Birth of Venus. She will forever be that timeless Venus in my heart.